it has been reported that schools will be banned from proactively teaching gender ideology to kids. Under new guidance issued by the Education Secretary, teachers should steer clear of the subject unless directly asked by a pupil, and all materials used must be shared with parents.
Well, joining us live is Helen Joyce, author and director of advocacy at Sex Matters. Helen, do you welcome this new announcement, or do you think it doesn't go far enough?
Well, I mean, I welcome it, but I think that until you come to the point that you're not telling children unscientific and harmful lies, we're not there yet. So any suggestion that a child can be accommodated in school as a member of the opposite sex is something that goes completely contrary to safeguarding and should just be off the table in schools. And that will be extremely important also for the way that the NHS deals with gender distress, because the other big thing that we're expecting tomorrow is the report from Dr. Hilary Cass, who was asked to look at the NHS treatment of gender distressed children. And schools and clinics feed into each other in this problem.
The thing is, Helen, that the entire situation now in terms of gender ideology and what happens in the classrooms is not transparent, and it is also not consistent. So we know very well there are schools that will accept a kid who says, I want to be a girl immediately. There are others that won't. There is no consistency across the country or policy about what schools should do. That's why the Education Secretary, Gillian Keegan, is trying to come up with something. I would suggest that if this is her solution, she hasn't published it yet, but this is coming from very good sources, that you're not allowed to discuss gender ideology unless a kid brings it up, unless a pupil brings it up. So that's just not satisfactory. That is ridiculous. In fairness to Ms. Keegan, apparently her report does say that if gender ideology does crop up as a subject in the classroom, teachers have to say it is a contested belief system. So that's fair enough. But just saying, well, you can't discuss it unless a pupil said, that isn't clarity at all, is it?
I haven't seen what she's going to do, and of course the devil will be in the detail here, but I think what she's trying to do, I hope what she's trying to do, is to stop the outright indoctrination that a lot of schools are involved in at the moment, where they tell children that everybody has a gender identity. They tell them that their sex doesn't matter compared with their gender identity. They say that what makes you a boy or a girl is your feelings about being a boy or a girl, and that people can be neither male nor female. So she's trying to stop that proactive indoctrination. But I agree with you that if a child comes to you and says, I feel non-binary, like being told that you can discuss that. Well, what are you meant to say? I mean, everyone is male or female. You know, that is just a fact, and it's just going to be a fact for the rest of your life, whether you like it or not. It's not very helpful to teachers to even suggest that there's something that's up for discussion here. Of course, you should be compassionate, but I mean, we just all are our sex. That's just a fact.
I mean, the problem we have here is the horse is rather bolted. There are already too many teachers who say, we're not going to follow this legislation, we'll do what we want to do, because they themselves have almost been brought up over the last couple of years to believe that if you turn around and say what you're saying, they're somehow committing a moral sin. Social media bombards young kids with this brain rot. So it's almost as if the government's acting way too late and trying to put the jack back in the box. Now, one thing that might do that, of course, like you said, is the Hilary Cass report. Do you think that this is potentially going to open up an avenue for future litigation where young people will turn around and say, because of the affirmative approach, when I went to, you know, my guardians and my seniors and those who are responsible for my you know, welfare, whether it be teachers, doctors and so forth, I'm having these confusing thoughts. I was just a teenager. I got them in my head because it was everywhere in pop culture. It was everywhere online. Then I got convinced because everyone said, oh, that's really nice. You should go for it. That I took puberty blockers. Then I had top surgery and now I'm infertile and I've ruined my body. Do you think actually it could open the door for some pretty strong legal action in the future?
God, you're talking about the nightmare scenario. I mean, I couldn't agree with you more that the horse is already bolted here. I mean, there are lots of children who have gender distress and who get socially transitioned to school who don't actually ever go near a gender clinic, and they don't have puberty blockers and mastectomies and so on. So that's important to say. But those children can be very distressed anyway by having been told lies about themselves, and also they're put at risk. it puts every child in a school at risk if boys are told they can use girls' spaces or vice versa, or if people can't say when they're doing risk assessment what sex children are. I do think that opens up liability for schools. Schools have preeminently got a safeguarding role. And you can't safeguard if you're pretending that some male people are female. It's really my nightmare that this is going to turn into liability. And this horse bolted thing, it's not just social media. You know, the government has known for years that schools' practice is inconsistent and poor, and it's been too scared to do anything about it.
Yeah.
Like, good for Gillian Keegan that she's finally doing this now, but we've needed this guidance for about 10 years. And in the meantime, schools have become emboldened to do things that they shouldn't have done. We've just seen a union, a teachers' union, encourage teachers to specifically, actively go against the school's guidance when it's published. I mean, that's outrageous. Unions should not be exhorting their teachers to go against government guidance that was got with an awful lot of legal advice and that was done with great care. So there's been multiple failures here. Whether that leads to court cases is not really so clear to me. But I mean, what we can say is that an awful lot of people have done an awful lot of harm in professional situations, and they really should have known better. And now finally we're starting to row back, which is good, but a bit late.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that it's all very well issuing guidance to schools. The problem with guidance is there's no compulsory factor in that. So Gillian Keegan has already, regardless of this upcoming report, she has already ordered teachers to share all classroom material with parents. This is, of course, if they're discussing gender ID, or perhaps if a kid has gone to a teacher and say, I think I'm in the wrong body. Now, we know that quite a few schools regard this as a secret between the teachers and the kids. In other words, as far as they're concerned, it is the state that raises children, not mums and dads. That is not a country I want to live in. Gillian Keegan says, no ifs, no buts, no more excuses. Teachers must share this with parents, and yet many of them are not. I think we need some orders. We need some instructions, more than just guidance.
I mean, again, I cannot disagree with you. It's so true. It's extraordinary how this has happened. I do think that we'll end up in court. And the only way to end up in court isn't suing. There are other ways, for example, judicial review. I mean, I complained to my own son's school about their outrageous trans guidance, which was obviously unlawful in all sorts of respects, and I got nowhere, and I brought the complaints procedure right to the end and was brushed off. In the end, they told me that telling boys they can use the girls' toilets doesn't mean that those aren't girls' toilets. Like, logically, of course it does. It means they're mixed sex toilets. Anyway, I got nowhere, and I had nowhere that I could go further. I think it's very difficult for parents to bring judicial review because they don't want to harm their own child. They don't want the years of stress and grief. It's really the DFE's job to do this. What we would recommend at Sex Matters, where I work, is that the DFE writes a model policy and tells schools that if they follow it and they're challenged, that the DFE will come in with them on any legal action. Because that's what schools' leadership teams want more than anything else. They want legal security. So if you tell them, do this, and if you're sued, the DFE will come in with you. Do anything else and you're on your own. That's the way to do it.
Yeah, very good point, Helen, and really good to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks.
Helen Joyce says she's the author of Trans, When Ideology Meets Reality, and she's the Director of Advocacy at Sex Matters.